Hi guys, I'm Beth, and today I'm joining some of my friends in making a cat costume for Blythe. You may have seen me make this bunny onesie in one of my older videos. At the end, I decided I wanted to tweak the pattern to make the hood larger and try a cat version next. Well, here's the perfect excuse to fix my pattern and try out a PUSHEEN style cat onesie. I love PUSHEEN the cat. She's such a sweet, cozy, lazy character. I saw on PUSHEEN.com that there's an official hoodie. It looks so cozy, I need one. To recreate this look, I have some 3mm short pile, slightly stretchy fabric, grey elastic to use for the cuffs, an old zipper to repurpose, and my husband's old Stormtrooper t-shirt, which will be perfect for the details. Pink lightweight cotton will make my lining for the hood. Here's my pattern pieces. I've already enlarged the hood, and I've used masking tape to add a couple of centimetres to the leg length as well. I've made an ear template and a piece to cut for the tail too. Being careful to orient my pattern pieces so the fur pile is pointed downwards, I've drawn round them all here. The seam allowance is 5mm unless otherwise stated. Now I'll take some time to cut everything out. Since it's a kind of jersey fabric, it doesn't fray at the edges, so none of my pieces need to be fray checked or overlocked. Now I realise that not everyone likes scary or sexy Halloween costumes, so I figured this is going to be a cute and cozy option for trick-or-treating on the night. Joining me today in making some more cat costumes are Marna of Dolls Rescued, who came up with the idea, Peace Craft Dolls with Tammy Powley, and J Dolls UK. You'll find their links in my video description. If you've not watched their videos before, please check them out and leave them some love. They are a talented bunch, all with much larger doll collections than me. Alright, that's all my pieces cut out. Body, front and back pieces, 2 sleeves, hood pieces with matching lining, 4 ear shapes and a tail. For assembly, I start with the zip. I line it up with the seam allowance edge on the right side of a front piece. I'll keep the top of the zip and I'll snip off the excess at the bottom later. I let the zipper top stop about a centimetre below the collar. Pin or clip it in place, then sew close to the zip so it will fold back like this. Repeat this for the other side too. Make sure the onesie front matches up, top and bottom. On the machine, I've swapped to a zipper foot so the needle can get nice and close. Once I have the needle down, I move the zip glider right down out of the way. I double check that the zip still works, move the zipper foot to the other side, then sew the other half of the zip. Finally, I cut off the excess zip and hand stitch around the bottom so my zip glider doesn't drop off. I also trim off the extra zip tape at the top. Next, I align the front and back pieces and join them at the shoulders. There. And now the sleeves go in. I find it simplest to line them up at the machine with the sleeve on top, and sew just a few stitches at a time. Lift the foot and move the sleeve to align the next little section. This sleeve doesn't have any gathers, so it should fit the opening just right. Here both sleeves are sewn in, and now I'll cut a piece of iron-on interfacing for facing the neckline with. I have some here that's dark coloured, but you can see the shiny side that has the adhesive. With the onesie right side up, the adhesive side will face up too. Once I sew around the collar and post it through, the adhesive side will face the underside of the fabric. Here you can see it pinned in place before sewing, smoothly without wrinkles. Now it's sewn, I cut along the opening and the centre and snip the curves, avoiding cutting any stitches. I'm able to post the facing through to the inside now. And I'll round off the corners and gently iron it to affix to the inside. Next, I'll attach this grey elastic to the cuffs. Something a little wider would have been better, but this'll do for me. I'll cut the elastic to roughly 2/3 of the width of the sleeve. At the machine, I'll securely stitch one end, then pull the elastic to cover the sleeve before sewing along it. This will gather the sleeve when the elastic is let go. You can just see me clip the end of the elastic in place before lining up the opposite side. I make sure there's a few stitches at the start before pulling it tight. I'm sewing towards the right-hand side of the elastic, close to the raw edge of the sleeve. This will leave a little elastic cuff visible when it's flipped out the right way. At the end, I use my finger to feed through the last bit of elastic. There. It gives us a nice gathered sleeve. Now both sleeves have cuffs, I can fold the onesie right sides in like this and sew closed each side, from cuffs to lower hem. I can now turn it right side out just to see how it looks and add cuffs to the legs next. I do this in exactly the same way as the sleeves, cutting my elastic to about 2/3 of the leg width. I have to turn it inside out again to sew up the final leg seam, from ankle to ankle. Then snip the seam allowance along the curve before turning it all right side out. Up to this point, you could make this onesie in any colour you like, and then attach any animal or character extras to suit yourself. But now we need to turn this into PUSHEEN. She needs stripes on her back and a tail. I cut the stripes from t-shirt jersey and fabric glue them into place. The tail will have stripes glued on, then be sewn into a tube. At the machine, I trim any excess, then check that it turns through okay. before moving the seam to the centre back and sewing a curve at the bottom of the tail. This gives me a nice neat tail with the seam line hidden. I tuck in the raw edge and carefully hand stitch it in place onto the body. I tried it on a Blythe first though to get the placement right. Oh, that's looking super cute. Now I will assemble the hood, hoping my new sizing works out. I attach the curved side seams to the straight centerpiece and repeat for the lining. At the machine you can see I sew this much like the sleeves, with the curved piece on top. I sew a little, lift the foot if needed, pull the curve to line up with the seam edge below, ready for the next few stitches. Then continue and repeat. I've sewn the outer hood already, and I've had an idea for the back of the hood. On the lining, I measure and mark a line up the middle from the back of the neck. It's about 12 centimeters long. I use a friction pen which vanishes with heat. My plan is to sew up and down either side of this line and cut up the middle, to make an opening in the back of the hood for long hair and the pull cords to come out of. First, I line up the outer edge of the hood with the lining inside, right sides facing. I will first join the outside. I leave the neckline at the very bottom open though for turning through. There. Now I've pinned through both layers, smoothing out any wrinkles ready to sew round this line. I've left just a few millimeters in the middle, enough to cut between, and cut a little V at the far end, being careful not to cut stitches. Now I turn the whole hood through. Yes, that looks good. Okay, I'll top stitch the edge of the hood and the opening at the back too. Then tuck and hand stitch closed the raw edges. I will then hand stitch the hood to the collar of the onesie. Finishing touches time now. I pair up the cat ear shapes here, right side facing, and sew round them, leaving a little gap to turn them through. I snip the curves so they'll turn nicely, then pin them in place before hand stitching to the hood. I'm being careful to only catch the outer fabric with my needle here. This means the lining layer is not caught up in the ears and it still looks nice inside. Time for the face. I cut more strips from jersey to go between the ears, and I use brown craft felt to cut out the eyes, mouth and whiskers. These are all fabric glued into place, with the whiskers only partly glued so they can stick out just like the real PUSHEEN onesie. And that completes my faux PUSHEEN cat costume. What do you think of it? Oh, I do wish I had an adult-sized one to match. I do love to wear onesies in the winter. I have a skeleton and a Rilakkuma one already. Do you wear onesies too? I'll soon be scanning in this pattern to release on my website, so do keep an eye out there so you can sew your own Blythe onesie and add whichever animal parts or faces you choose. I still have a sale on at the moment, so look out for some unique Blythe clothes and shoes there. And stay tuned for a final release of my custom design autumn dress sets. They'll be out very soon, so watch out here on Instagram and Facebook for the release day. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please check out the other cat costumes being made today, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!